All right.
Don't do
Okay.
it. Thanks, Tiffany.
All right. Don't do it. Yeah. No, she is. Tater tots from Sonic. Of course not. Those are tater tots from anywhere are amazing. So, my for Super Bowl, my husband special requested those little pigs in a blanket.
Oh, yum.
So
Yeah.
we had those. We had those, which are
Yeah.
little tiny hot dogs wrapped in pastry. Yeah, dipped in ketchup.
So we use croissants instead of biscuits,
You
and
do
we call them mummy wraps.
mummy wraps.
Yeah. And they're so cute.
We didn't end up having the coconut shrimp
And
that I bought. Or the samosas. I bought samosas too. We didn't have those either. So
Let's see. Did everybody have fun with watching the Super Bowl?
I only made it through half. So when I went to bed, the San Francisco was winning. So,
Surprise, surprise.
It breaks my heart. I'm a Niners fan, so it was a tough go for me there at the end. But you give a minute to Patrick Mahomes, he's gonna make something happen. So they kind of gave themselves up on that one, in my opinion. So
Yeah,
mm.
I kept on walking through just to irritate the living room crowd and say, I would say, how's Taylor doing?
Right. That's what my husband was all he was that's it seemed like I mean, I know he was watching the game. I mean, I sit there, but I'm not really watching it. But he kept going. He was very interested in the whole Taylor thing.
Yeah. My dad's a
She's a Rhode
huge
Islander, right?
fan.
Well, she's an honorary Rhode Islander. She has a house here. So
That counts. If she can drive around your beachfront, that counts. It's beautiful in that area.
she has at least once a year somebody breaks into her property. So
wow,
yeah.
Yeah, it's
diehard fans.
Oh yes. Oh
something,
yeah.
something like that. Well, we are glad that everybody's here. We're doing a deep dive into Dext, and Dext has so much to offer. So we have a couple of special guests, and that is going to help us with breaking apart how do you use Dext? What are some of those best features about Dext? So a little bit of a sneak peek into some things that are coming. So very, very excited. Heather, do you want to go ahead and do an intro and kick us off?
I will do that. I'm Heather. For those of you that I have not yet met, which I think we're all among friends, I think most people know me. I am a CPA and I'm the Director of Education and Media at Woodard, and I am a tech lover. I love exploring new technology. And yeah, so that's me. And I'm super happy to be here with all of you lovely people.
Oh, well, I'm glad that you're here. And my name is Liz Scott. And, the tech world is evolving so fast that I feel like it's keeping us on our toes. Lots of things that are changing and coming our way. And I feel like 2024 is going to be a big year, especially for our accounting industry. Lots of apps are doing things with AI, pulling in lots of new functionalities. So lots of things to come, I'm thinking.
Yeah, you know what I love about what's happening is we're seeing stronger and tighter integration. So I think the workflows are really starting to, we were pretty scrappy there, right? The last 10 years, we've been scrappy accountants kind of chunking things together and piecing things together to make it work. And now we're starting to see things really streamline and those integrations becoming much more reliable and easy, which is awesome. And I think that's going to continue for sure.
It's certainly needed. So I'm happy to see that happening. Talking about a tech guru, we've got Dan with us here today. So welcome, Dan. You've been with us before. You want to do
I
an
have.
intro?
Yeah, happy to. By the way, I appreciate you guys inviting me. I love having a conversation with the two of you. You're always such a blast to talk with because I am like you two. I am a tech nerd and absolutely love everything technology. I'm a partner at Ignite Spot Accounting. We've been a firm for just over 15 years, which has been super fun. And we're focused on trying to create process automation for the customers that we work with, as well as financial clarity, which I think is what most people are. But we really emphasize a lot on the technology side and trying to simplify our clients' workflows. And that's where my passion is, 100% on that space. And I couldn't agree with you two even more with the fact that integrations are becoming so much better between applications. I was talking with my team actually earlier this week or yesterday, and we were talking about two of our apps that are actually talking to each other now that help with workflow efficiency. And I was like, it's awesome that they're starting to cross with each other versus having to go through a GL in order to be able to kind of solve the problems overall. And I just think it's so much better for workflow and communication when you have things like that happening and that tighter communication overall. So really happy to see that as well too.
Mhm.
It's a good evolution.
Very much so.
And then we have special guests with us today. Nana, do you want to introduce yourself? Because you got a lot of things that you do as well.
I was just introduced earlier today as a Swiss Army knife at Dext. So that's the biggest title. So my name is Heather. I'm a CPACA. I'm a senior practice solutions expert here at Dext. And what that means is basically I am the interpreter. And I represent the accounting community. So I work with the sales teams, the marketing teams, the product marketing teams, the product teams, really to translate the value of our products to our customers, right? We want to build products that solve problems, real problems for accountants. Yes, somebody just congratulated me on the new GM. I am ridiculously excited about Rachel Fitch now being our new GM as of like today.
Right? It's exciting.
And so, you know, we really connect, and again, we're really passionate. So excited. We're so passionate about the accounting community. We really know the pain that accountants have had to go through in the past. And ultimately, we want to solve those problems going forward. So a little bit about my professional background. I have a traditional accounting background that I worked at, you know, one of the big four in like audit and assurance for a number of years, and then went on to multiple multinational entities in accounting and finance and corporate reporting roles and so on. And so I've lived it from the firm's perspective, from a accounting department's perspective. And accountants we have a lot of pain out with technology, and I just want to solve it. So that's why I started working at Dext to really wrangle some of those problems. So I'm really happy to join you guys today to talk about, you know, how we're solving those real problems utilizing technologies such as Dext.
Well, I'm glad that you're here because there has been a lot of growth in Dext itself and the service offerings. So that's part of what you're going to share with us today is breaking apart those different service offerings. And that'll give us some insights as to how can we use a solution that many are already using, but then grow into some of these other areas that Dext has expanded to. Heather, do you want to do a thank you to our sponsors, including our brand new one?
Yes, so very excited. We actually have two brand new ones that we're kicking off. Thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us make Appy Hour possible. But we have Settle joining us as a sponsor. We're going to be having a firm spotlight coming up and a deep dive into Settle, which is accounts payable automation. So excited about that. And then we also have our brand new sponsor, MyTask LMS, which Liz and I got on our call to learn about MyTask LMS. And I think both of us did this.
Wow.
It is absolutely amazing. We can't wait to show you what MyTask LMS does. It's amazing. So we're really excited. Thank you for supporting Appy Hour, and we can't wait to bring both of these amazing apps to everybody. So exciting.
Very, very. Yep. I think that any of these solutions that we bring onto Appy Hour, it's because we have watched and seen some of these apps in our industry doing some really cool things. So I'm certainly looking forward to more to come this year.
Mm-hmm.
So Dext is in the house with this Dext daiquiri. You can't get any more orange than this. So spiced dark rum, yum.
Yum,
Uh,
yum,
Oranges
and a
there.
little bit of lime.
It's
So
great.
So Liz and I, we have a soft spot for Dext. So I've got to tell our story, Liz. So when back in it seems like a life, maybe not a lifetime ago, but it seems a long time ago, we had the incredible opportunity to go to QuickBooks Connect in London. And Dext was known by a different name back then, but we were invited to their offices in London, and we just had a lovely lunch. And we had a wonderful visit. So that was great. It was great to meet the team across the pond. But I just brought back fun, just warm, fuzzy memories of spending time with the team over there. So we're excited to have you guys on.
Yeah, the office facility there is very, it's got a really nice open feel to it. And it's collaborative. So lots of whiteboards, lots of markers that were on the walls, lots of drawings and think tank kind of environment, which is right up my jam. So lots of how to make Dext better kind of conversations. It was an honor to be there.
It was,
Yeah.
it really was, for sure.
You know what, guys, I have to say that I'm not just saying this because I get paid by Dex, but I have worked with a number of different people again in so many different aspects, but the people at Dex are really, really special. They're so much fun. They, like we actually only get together in the Canadian office like once a month, but we have the best people. We probably have some of the best culture that I have ever worked with. So not that I don't love accountants, to be clear, I love you guys, of course, right? Okay, but we it's a different group, and they just bring a really great energy. So this drink is appropriate, that Dext daiquiri, drink up and absorb some of that Dext spirit here.
Well said. So this is part of where, Dan, I'd really like to also pull you into this conversation, but there's a lot to digest here. So do you want to first take us through what we're seeing here, and then Nana and Dex, whoever wants to lead the way on this? It definitely feels like we've got some things to conversate on.
Yeah, definitely. What I love about this illustration is it really does show the context of where the 3 different Dext products actually can implement into your tech stack and workflows within your organizations. The part that's awesome about this as well too is it shows you the different type of documentation formats that you can upload into Dext and how it can help simplify with that. I know there's a lot of tools and features out there that focus on receipts only, or working with bank statements or things of that nature, and they've done a fantastic job providing a way for you to be able to aggregate all of that into a single platform to be able to simplify that process for you. And then on top of that, they added in the Dext Commerce Association with it as well too, which does a fantastic job just integrating and bringing clarity on your e-commerce work for your clients and being able to integrate that directly into your general ledger. There is so much functionality within that app that we really love within our organization. One of the best PayPal integrations that I would say in e-commerce out there is through their app, and it's the primary one we use within our organization for that. It's just a very fantastic tool. And as you can see with all the lines and everything like that, there's a huge amount of functionality that just really supports your organization very, very well. And so it's been a great tool for us. We've been happy with it for several years now and are just grateful that they continue to develop this and make it more functional for organizations to operate better.
Yes, I talked earlier about solving real problems, and we don't take that lightly, right? We know what an accountant's workflow really looks like, and where we don't know, we hire experts like myself to really talk about that workflow. We know the importance of meeting deadlines. We understand the importance of having one source of truth, and so it's really relevant for us to understand where we fit in to, you know, absorb all of that information, absorb all of those records as much as possible, as quickly as possible, within as much detail as possible. So it can end up in your bookkeeping software, or it can end up in your spreadsheets, because, you know, we as accountants, we don't want to give up Excel. We love Excel, but, you know, at the end of the day, we want as much detailed information in there as possible. And then we have products like Dext Precision, which really look at data quality and assurance, so that, again, we can have one final source of truth when we're completing all those services, our annual accounting, bookkeeping, tax returns, other compliance reporting. We want to make sure that you're not having to go through rework as much as possible, right? And that's really what this is showcasing here for Dext.
Well, and I really like it. So somebody who comes to Dext and they're familiar with maybe Dext Prepare, that workflow you've outlined here, that where it would fit in with your client information that's being sent over, so your resources, and then the types of, you're calling them records here, but your PDFs, so your receipts, your invoices, your bank statements, each of those pieces, you've broken it apart to show where does it fit in. And then Dan, you're talking about Dext Commerce, and PayPal has been a pain for a lot of people for many years. So to hear about a solution that's got it solved, that's definitely inspiring. And then move over into Dext Precision. Do you mind elaborating a little bit more about what does Dext Precision do?
Yeah, definitely. Dext Precision, the part that I like about this is it actually starts coming into your quality control or your review process that you have within your organization, or that you don't have in your organization and you need help building out. What it does is it does a deep dive and an analysis into your financials to be able to understand and flag anomalies for you, or to be able to give you visualization into how well your organization overall is performing or your clients are performing. One of the coolest features, and I think one of the best reports that our clients love, is actually it does an analysis on the customer that you're looking at, accounts receivable or their revenue, and tells you really great context into the weight of each of those customers as it relates to the success of the organization, and where you should be focusing your energy on, and how many transactions are going along with that. And that's it feels like a very simple tool, but it creates a whole lot of transparency for small businesses when they're trying to understand what is the right client mix for me to work on. And now, as an advisor, we have the ability to utilize that tool to show them, hey, you've got 15 clients that are generating more than 60% of your revenue. And it's of that 15 clients, we're doing 30 invoices. But then you've got 65 invoices for that remaining 40%, 40% of your clients. And there's, 65 different people that you're working with. Which one's the better conversation to focus on and work with? Where is your better resources allocated to be able to improve your organizational performance? It gives you that kind of insight to really help you to be able to navigate everything with your clients. And then it does the exact same thing on the expense side from that perspective too. Does some anomaly detection, shows you where maybe potentially you've classified expenses into categories that were not the same in prior months. And so it flags that to help you to be able to stay on top of accuracy and efficiency. It's just tools and things like that that really enhance the way you look and view your financials for your clients, and also help cut down on just that minutia of trying to figure out those file by file as you're looking into QuickBooks or Xero or whatever GL solution you're using, to be able to try to see that detail, because it pulls it right out into a very easily consumed viewable format, which I think is absolutely fantastic.
I have a question. You mentioned QuickBooks or Xero or whatever GL you're using. What GLs does Dext support? So can you talk, or the Precision, what does Dext Precision support?
Yeah, so we integrate with, so each of the three products integrates a little bit differently, and we're trying to make sure that that's streamlined going forward. So QBO and QBD and Sage are all supported with Dext Prepare and QBD as well. Now, Dext Commerce, it's really the cloud-based, right? So just say Sage 50, QBO, not QBD, and 0, right? And then precision is very similar from that perspective. So it is something that, you know, we're really hoping to get accountants more technologically forward in terms of adopting the cloud as much as possible. That's where the focus is going forward. But yeah, those are your three main areas. And of course, spreadsheets, because we're still using them.
Well, there's still some cool stuff that you can do in spreadsheets.
Oh,
In fact, I was looking at
totally.
Copilot today, and some of the things that they're pulling in you can do with spreadsheets and Copilot. So I don't think that our Excel files are going to go anywhere. I think they're here.
No, they're never going anywhere. It's just agile, but you know, no internal controls with Excel, right? Or very limited.
Thank you
Well,
for that.
to pull
Right.
in a bit more of this conversation, here's a bit more of a description. And so just to give you some idea here, I did take off our little equals to, so that way to pull it into the next slide. But do you want to elaborate what we're seeing here?
Yeah, I can do that. And then Dan, you fact check me, okay? Because there's nothing we love more than fact checking and making sure there's one source of truth. So data capture, extraction, and collection. Again, this is really where it all begins, okay? The data in your general ledger is only as good as the completeness of that data and the accuracy of that data, right? And so we really focus on getting information in as quickly as possible, as easily as possible, with as little human intervention as possible, because we make a mess of things as human beings, right? And so, and you know what? We're also sometimes not interested in capturing all that information, especially when it comes in last minute and we're trying to meet a deadline. That really compromises the accuracy. It compromises the completeness of that information, right? So we might enter just like a bare minimum info. Well, what that does for accountants is then they don't have enough information to do advisory work. They don't have enough information to do the more strategic stuff, right? So really we focus on that data capture, extraction, collection. We have several different methods with which to capture that data. So we have an email in method where you get a custom email. We have a fetch method where you can connect to a supplier, maybe your telecommunications company, maybe you have a construction client, and you can connect directly to their Home Depot Pro account. And we fetch all those receipts, we fetch all of the invoices, and that way there's no human intervention, right? It happens at the point of sale or the point of the transaction, and then feeds directly into Dext, which then feeds into your general ledger, right? A popular one is the mobile app. Again, I'm going to use construction because, you know, that tends to be the biggest consumer customers that end up really benefiting from something like the mobile app. They're always on the go. They don't want to sit beside a computer at any point in their day. And that's okay. That's why we're giving them as many different options to capture that data as possible. We got e-invoicing, we've got AI extraction, number of different things. So ultimately what happens is captures that information as detailed as possible, get that into your general ledger. You can, you can first of all, how is it going to get into your general ledger? You're going to have to classify it, right? That classification is only going to work if you have a seamless integration with your general ledger, which we do. Coincidentally, we have that seamless integration where if you create a new chart of account in, or a new supplier in Dext, it's going to pick up in your general ledger software, and vice versa. If you create it in your general ledger software, it's going to pick up in Dext, right? We want to make sure that that process is smooth, that integration is smooth, so you're not having to toggle back and forth so much, right? And so it's not just suppliers, the chart of accounts, the projects, the classes, all of those, because it's available, you can map them appropriately, you can categorize them appropriately. The AI picks up your patterns, just like it does with like Spotify or something of the sort, right? It reads your patterns and then makes recommendations to you based on some of those patterns. And then ultimately, you can then publish those items to your general ledger, or even set up rules around it. The rules are really important, so that you can, again, have the hands-off approach, automated approach and set it and forget it, right? That's it. And then ultimately, we talked a little bit about precision, but also with Dext Prepare, you know, you're able to really work on some of those workflows and find missing paperwork or communicate with your clients directly in a really efficient manner, because information is only good if it's timely and if it's accurate, if it's complete. So we really want to make sure that your clients are using Dext on a regular basis, that they're not waiting till the end of the year or when they need their taxes done, that's when they start submitting information. Well, that still causes a lot of bottlenecks for you, right? So we really want to make sure that it's utilized on a regular basis. So you can ask for missing paperwork. So you can look at your bank transactions and say, well, I don't have a bank. I don't have supporting documentation for this bank transaction. So, and that's where bank matching comes in, right? So you can see that transparency. So it's just a number of different ways that we solve for accountants and their day-to-day and their workflows, and just getting that information in so you can do whatever it is you need to do with it, right?
Well, and
Well,
you
one
know,
of
And fact check me. Am
Yeah,
I
no,
telling the truth?
100% you're telling the truth. And I was going to dive into a few more areas that I think are really critical for us. And I think that this is one of those, over time, our relationship with our customers have changed pretty dramatically, right? We have gone from a really retroactive or delayed relationship with our customers where it's like, hey, these transactions have happened, send me information. And it's 6 weeks sometimes, or even 12 months sometimes to get those receipts or those classifications back. This is where this is where, as Nana talked about with the app, it changes that experience, because now when those transactions are coming in and you're not seeing the documentation or the classifications that needed, you can send a little chat note to them and it notifies them on their app so that they can update that information or provide that information very quickly. That kind of communication really helps change the interaction that you have with your customers, and puts it also outside of just the business owner's, hands. It puts it right in the hands of the people who are actually spending and using those resources, which makes your phone calls and your conversations with your clients so much more efficient. I think there's a lot of value that comes from that, just from that perspective. But also, I think the other part that I think is really wonderful with this too is the mapping of rules function. We see this across the board with other apps and other tools, but this works a little bit differently, especially when it comes to those integrations from other resources or other tools, or there's other vendors that come in. Now, when this information is coming in, you can actually set up strict, hard to find rules that allow you to verify, that allow you to confirm, that allow you even to split up percentages of those expenses that are coming in. Instead of just allocating it to one specific bucket, you can code it into, as Nana mentioned, to different GL lines or different classes or different departments or things like that, which is very unique. That's not a very common feature set among other tools that allow you to do these, that allow data extraction. And so for nonprofits, this becomes very, very unique from that perspective, to where you can actually allocate to 3 different classes or 3 different GL codes on a percentage base from the invoice and the amount that comes in, which is really cool. I think that's an awesome feature that helps simplify those relationships very heavily. You can set it up to where it auto pushes into your GL, or it's set for you to be able to review, which I think is really critical. But this is where it kind of ties into, as you see in this formula that's been created, it's this plus this equal. And that kind of turns to the next slide, which this is one of the parts that I absolutely love, is as a firm manager and as a firm owner, I'm always worried about how our team is utilizing the resources and tools that we provide. And sometimes it's really difficult to assess that from an oversight perspective. Sometimes you have to drill into each individual client or things of that nature. What Dext has done with this is it actually gives you a whole practice insight view. And so it aggregates information across all of your clients so that you can visually see how well your book of business is performing within the Dext ecosystem. And so, as you can see from here, there's ways for you to be able to tell if there's automations that are being set up and how many transactions are coming in that are automated versus not. It also gives you the supplier rule by client, which is one of my favorite pieces to be able to look at, because we have clients that have huge transaction volumes. And so when you start to see there's not as much dark green on that line item, I start to question, are we paying attention to what's happening to the client? Because these are the same vendors that are happening every month. And so we know the GL is not changing. How can we create more efficiency by setting up rules and putting more accuracy into the way we're processing? Plus also with the two graphs that we see on the right-hand side, it shows you which clients are active and which ones aren't. And so that's another feature that I think is really, really great from this perspective, is gives you insights into which clients are actually utilizing the tool. Is it something that we need to have a further conversation with, or is it someone that maybe they don't need some of the features that are going along with this, and we need to reassess how we're working with that client or how we're interacting? That gives you a very quick view of that, so you can be able to address it very, very quickly. And then, of course, I love the supplier rule function. The higher the percentage on this, the better you are when it comes to adding those efficiencies in. This is a number we're chasing pretty heavily in our organization. We're trying to be at that tip top percentage allocation. It's really hard to be 100% because there are expenses and transactions that come in that aren't auto matchable. You know, we have things that are unique that need to be coded, but this is the number I pay most attention to, because I definitely want to make sure my team is using as much automation as we can, because that simplifies the amount of work they're doing and gives the quality of the product to our client better, which of course helps cut down time.
You know, one of the things that between these two slides, the breakdown here really makes it clear about what is really impacting your client and what's impacting the firm. So Dan, you know, you highlighting here on the screen, this is really the firm. What are the efficiencies here? What can you do in order to get more accurate? What can you do to make some improvements? What can you do in order to maybe teach the team how to utilize rules better? So there's a lot of gained insights with this particular dashboard that you're talking about. And in that previous slide where we were talking about the breakdown of the tools and how to use them, you know, Carla Caldwell, she was with us and she said every single client they've got connected to Dext, every single client must submit their receipts. And the reason for doing that is to be able to go back through and to look at the accuracy of the bookkeeping. Not really sure, you know, if a transaction was coded correctly, but if you've got the receipt, you can go back and you can see the details, especially whenever you're talking about a situation where it's construction and it really matters as to what job or class that you're allocating those expenses to. So, you know, this is a nice breakdown of what is affecting the client and what's impacting the firm.
Very much so. And I love the comment you made about, you know, putting it in simple terms and putting it in the hands of the people that are working on it to be able to simplify the end result that we're creating. I set up a Dext account for my brother's business. My brother's a Finnish carpenter, and he has a lot of transactions that come from Amazon, from Home Depot, from Lowe's, and different things from that perspective. But he has to have, for what he does, because his fixed assets and things like that change, and materials per job change and things of that nature, he has to have that level of detail in his receipts to be able to go back and look at, is the price increasing dramatically on these types of tools or these types of resources? And for someone like him, who is just always in his truck, always on the go, always buying something quick, the moment he jumps in his truck, he can take a picture of the receipt and then move on, which really helps him to not have to stress and worry about it. But he knows that in 3 months, if he needs to look at the price because things seem to look askew, he can jump back in there and scan through those receipts to be able to help him to be able to make sure that he's buying the right things at the right price and everything from that perspective, which I think really gives a lot of value to people who are trying to keep their business moving on the fly, who are trying to maneuver through just inflation and things from that perspective. And I love that functionality, because it really just, it puts those tools back in their hand, to where not as we don't want to be that person who answers those questions as accountants, but if they're purchasing something very quickly, they don't want to wait for it to get back from, you know, to get an email back from us on what their last 4 receipts were from that vendor. They want to do it very quickly because they've got to run their business. Yeah. And it allows our conversations to be so much more valuable with them instead of just receipt content, right, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, I have to add on to that, Dan. I love that story because I mean, think about how much lumber prices changed over the pandemic over the past few years, right? So if he only got you information at the end of the year, how is that impacting his job costing? How is that impacting his ability to, you know, purchase some tools in advance or you know, some materials in advance, or, you know, try to be strategize which jobs he might work on or so on, right? I mean, like I said, the information is only as valuable as its accuracy, completeness, and timeliness, right? So I love that you're able to advise them accordingly. And this is a great use case, actually, of why it's important from the client's perspective to engage with a product like this and to submit things on a regular basis. It helps them. It's not only for the accountant's perspective, it helps them at the end of the day, right?
You know, the next piece of that too is when you're talking to clients about profitability. And right now we know that there's an increase in everything, but it helps to be able to break down to show what the expenses are month over month. And then to be able to say, is it time to actually have an increase in prices because there's an increase in cost? So those are some of those conversations that really do now help the accountants and bookkeepers to share those types of insights with their clients. Here's the data, you're looking at it.
Or
I was just going to say, I love that comment because that's the one thing that we look at in the items submitted category. This is where we can start. When you start pulling that information by a specific client, you can actually show them transaction volume changes and what's being managed and monitored. And you can show them where we're creating efficiencies and where we're not. And this is also a great opportunity for you to give those people who are in leadership with your clients motivation to push their team to be more involved with it, because now they're not the one that's being impacted by having to be impacted by trying to chase all that information down, because they're seeing that it's their team that's missing, or that they're seeing that their team is the one that needs to participate a little bit more. And so it just enhances that discussion, but also allows you to have more transparency for sometimes those pricing increase conversations, because if you can show them visually, hey, your transaction volume is increased exponentially over the last 6 months.
Yeah.
This is a table, it's a chart that gives you very clear understanding of what's going on without the client having to feel like, yeah, no, you're stretching the truth on this. No, look, you can see it there. Your numbers have changed pretty dramatically over time. And so it just gives them a lot of visualization, which is really fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, one of the other things that I heard you talk about, Nana, was the fetching that's happening. So that's going to be an area that for years we had a fetching tool that we loved, and you know, I'm going to have to explore a little further what all can be fetched, because that is a huge time save to the team.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I know that fetch is a huge one, right? Because like Dan's, you know, brother or brother-in-law there, that anecdote, always on the go. They don't want to answer questions from their accounts. In fact, sometimes they don't want to answer questions from their customers because, you know, it's admin. But, you know, we're not going to get into that. Can you tell I've been through a recent kitchen renovation? But, you know, it's like, you know, let's make it as easy as possible to remove the human from that process, right? Just connect it and set it and forget it, right? So from a fetching perspective, there are a number of different vendors who we fetch from, and we're continuing to innovate. We're continuing to make sure that that feature is optimized on a regular basis. So part of my role is to go back to the product team whenever we identify additional vendors that will be positive for us to connect with. And that's based on feedback, right? So if I'm on a call like this and we're getting feedback about vendors that you're seeing very often, that's something that I can take and go to the product team and say, hey, the Appy Hour audience really needs this, right? And you know, we can push for that. But that's something that has been extremely advocated for within our company over the last little while, is just the importance of fetch.
Well, then I'm going to say, Appy community, throw in there what you're trying to fetch. What would be of value?
So
You know,
Tiffany had some comments about like she finds that it's breaking, and that is something that we are pounding on the products teams for, right? To make sure that there's stable connections on an ongoing basis, similar to how they're very stable. We haven't had any issues from the connection with our general ledger software. We really want to work on tightening up those relationships with each of those 3,000 plus vendors to make sure that that's stable and it's not breaking, right? So that is feedback that we've taken forward.
And I love go ahead. Sorry, Heather.
No, I was gonna say I love the I also love the fact that you guys are on, no code platforms like Zapier, right? Because that gives you just another way to automate. If you don't have a native fetch or you don't have the ability to set up automated forwarding, you can create your own, which I think is a huge benefit. So Dan, have you done much with Zapier and Dext?
Yeah, we've definitely done a little bit with it. I think the biggest part, I will say this, my comments around vendor stuff is hard to begin with because there's so many different security protocols that you have to go through. And I think there's good and bad that come along with 2FA and with, MFA and everything else like that. And so I think that's one of the parts that's going to become difficult across every tool that we use going forward that is doing these types of extractions or fetching or features from that perspective. And so my hope, of course, is that Dext can be the solution that solves that for everybody and makes that perfect relationship. But no, I agree with you. There's those middleware tools that really allow you to simplify the process. And we've also gone to the extent with some of these vendors to actually just put the Dext inbox as a secondary email for them to just send to automatically. Maybe it goes to the client as well, but putting that as a CC really cuts down on some of those time for those clients for us that do have some really hard, verification or authorization inbox things to go through. So that's something we've really tried to actively push, but security is going to be one of those things we're always going to have to deal with. I mean, we deal with it with bank accounts. We're going to deal with it with vendor portals as well. And so it's just something that is going to change and adjust over time.
Right.
I wish I could have hit the like button when you were saying, the email, sending it over into the portal. That really is the easiest way to make sure that communication just happens and it gets where you want it to go. So
Absolutely.
So I'm hitting the like button. So Nana, is it easiest for me to forward slides at this point, or would you
Yes,
like to start?
please.
Okay, all right, you got it. So drum roll, new releases.
New releases. All right, so there are a number of them. Let's take that next slide as the first one. Multi-account management. So what this is, and if you click on it one more time, let's see if this will work. What this is the ability to switch between Dext Prepare accounts more seamlessly, right? So it used to be that you have to create like almost this ghost account in order to connect to your other business. But the truth is there are a lot of companies that there are a lot of users rather who need to be able to log into multiple different companies. Maybe they have multiple related parties and so on. So it was a real pain. So now, as of last year, we've been able to implement multi-account management, where it's just a little toggle and you can switch between the different accounts that you have access to. So your accountant still can maintain the access rights to the individual companies, but you have access to multiple different related parties if you need to. And even from an accountant's perspective, like to think about a lot of accountants and bookkeepers are now outsourcing to multiple different companies, right? And so you have the opportunity with your one login as an accountant or bookkeeper to switch between different accounts. So when we look at our next feature, new release, mobile expense reports. Oh my God. So this highly requested feature by user boards, I was one of the people because Katie, on my marketing team knows I'm the worst with submitting my expenses. So to make it as easy as possible for me to just submit my expense report on my phone, game changer from a behavioral issue standpoint, right? So this was highly requested. So now not only can you add receipts or add documentation via the phone, you can now add them to an expense report and then submit that expense report for approval, which means you also get paid much quicker. Katie says I'm sharing my biggest secret willy-nilly. That's okay. It's safe. It's safe in this group. So bank statement extraction update. So we continue to innovate on this space, right? Because, I used to be an auditor, so auditability of our data is super important to me, and I'm always advocating for that in the company even. And that's something that we don't take lightly. We know the reason why bookkeepers and accountants want documentation because they want to be audit ready at all times, right? Fundamentally, that's what it is. We don't just want to take somebody's word for it, right? And so from a bank statement extraction perspective, what that does is make sure that we can check for completeness and existence of the transactions as well as the accuracy. So we have the opportunity to tie back the documentation to our bank. And so our bank match would show on your inbox page where every single item has a bank match. And then vice versa, if you look at your bank statement extraction page, you're able to see whether every single item there has documentation attached to it. And if it doesn't, you go and request that paperwork, right? So you even in this case where we have innovated on it so that you can identify if you're missing bank statements. So if the completeness of the number of bank statements even is missing, and being able to reconcile that. And also ultimately to be able to accept different formats for your bank statement as well. Okay. And our next one here is practice insight. So this is a hidden gem sometimes, but this is really available in our advanced package, which was shown a little bit earlier in that dashboard where you're able to see not only things that impact your clients, but things that impact your business. So this is just be able to see those actionable insights, right? So how often are people bringing documentation what are some of the delays? And we see some firms use a carrot or stick approach where, they would say the carrot approach is to say, if you get my documents in by X date, or basically if there's a really small delay in the number of the time since the expense was incurred versus when you get us documentation, then maybe you get a treat, right? You get some sort of incentive. Versus the opposite end, where if you're taking so long to get us documentation, maybe there's a punitive charge, right? Because you're causing delays in our processes, you're causing our process to break down. Basically, there's an impact to our business and not just an impact to you. So practice insights just allows us to, amongst other things, see client data, to see how your team is utilizing the efficiencies available within the product, because God forbid you're actually paying for this product that you're not getting the most of. No one wants that, right? So really making sure that you're getting the most utility out of everything. If we go to our next one, we see inline calculator. This was another really popular one. If you need to adjust anything or tweak anything on a specific line item, you can do so. You can actually add in it. So we love Excel. We don't want to get rid of it. So sometimes we're embedding it, but with internal controls, right? Of course. So the ability to do simple calculations, maybe you want to add something in there. Tiffany's loving it. And a lot of people are loving this inline calculator. So you don't have to flip back and forth to your calculator app or your Excel app and then come and document something here in Dext Prepare. You can just do it right within the app.
Nice.
Okay, so let's look at our next one here, hidden gems. Let's look at our first hidden gem. Deduplication and submission history. So this is really making sure, again, the auditability of our data is super important. We really want to make sure that you don't get multiple pieces of documentation, and that the documentation that you bring in is verified prior to then being submitted into QuickBooks, right? Or Xero or your general ledger software. Because ultimately what this is about is we only want one source of truth, one way or another. So we don't want multiple things coming in that kind of look similar, but ultimately are not quite the same. So deduplication is a setting that can be controlled at the supplier level within your Dext Prepare. And our next hidden gem Supplier rules and smart splits. Guys, like this is, if you're not using supplier rules and smart splits, you're not getting the most of Dext for sure. You have the opportunity to set some really core automation here with Dext Prepare. That the AI is not going to override, right? Or it's not going to make a different suggestion for you. So here's an example. So in Canada, you have the opportunity to write off part of your home office expenses. So here's an opportunity to do that. You know, so let's say your home utility bill can be, part of it can be expense. So if I say 10% of my house is used for work, so that is effectively my home office, that means 10% of my utility bill can be allocated to my home office, right? So imagine using Fetch to fetch that utility bill from that vendor and then automatically having a supplier rule in there so that 10% of that invoice is automatically allocated to home office expenses. And then the other 90% is automatically allocated to shareholder loan, right? Or something of the sort. You don't have to touch it, right? So you created this rule on a supplier perspective that it's stagnant. It is extreme automation, like I see there from Heather. So really getting the opportunity to split and dissect the documentation that's coming in and apply automation to it. So again, you can just walk away, right? You can just press publish. And our next hidden gem.
Feel a
Yeah,
lot of
I'm just gonna,
here.
um,
Go ahead, Heather.
I'm gonna make everybody wait for
Yeah.
the final hidden gem. You're gonna have to, it's suspense is going to kill you, and I'm gonna launch our poll. So I'm gonna interrupt and launch our poll.
Yeah.
Just because I want to make sure everybody is able to answer the poll. So would you like to learn more about Dext? If you would, which it looks like so many people would like to learn about Dext, we will send your information on over to our friends at Dext after today's webinar. So I'm just going to leave that up and it will go to the side so you can continue now Nana, with your presentation. I didn't mean to be rude. I just wanted to make sure everybody got the opportunity to answer that poll.
Of course, of course. So really, you know what? It's a good time to interrupt because I don't have another hidden gem, but I will tell you what is coming up next. What's coming up next is we are continuing to innovate on the mobile app, right? We really understand the importance of that, the timeliness of the mobile app odds, the opportunity to snap a picture right there when you consume something. You know, it's that's what it's all about, right? So we're continuing to invest in the mobile app, better onboarding experience, the ability to connect to your general ledger, the AI camera, making that even more precise than it already is. We're working on mileage tracking as well within the mobile app. So ultimately what we're trying to do is ensure that your experience in the mobile app is at least as good, if not better and more robust than on the desktop. Okay. Now, finally, item original email. Okay, so if you don't have your pom-poms out for Dext right now, you will after this. This one is another highly requested one. This is solving the problem where you get the documentation from your clients, but then in the detail of the email or in the email, they've got additional details about it, right? Or maybe they're telling you how it should be split up. But previously, or currently, I should say with Dext, that email body information is lost, right? So the request is basically, can we get that attachment? Can we get that email attached to the documentation itself going forward? And the answer will be yes. So coming really, really soon, you will have the opportunity to not only have the documentation itself, but the email that supports it with additional, kudos from your clients, hopefully, as well as additional allocation details from them. Okay. And we love it. People are loving it already.
Like just about everybody
People are
has
so
answered the
excited.
poll. So do we want to do a bit of a countdown on our poll and then we'll.
Oh, I already closed the poll. I did kind of I did a little countdown in the chat. So yeah.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
All right.
And
so
people are
Dextension, guys. I have to talk about the extension, and yes, that is a pun, which I think I had some influence in, me and the other accountants in the company, because we love it. And what this is doing is just making that experience with the general ledgers that much more seamless, right? So it's making sure that, if you're working within the general ledger on that page, you don't have to actually switch. You can just stay on that page. You can drag and drop for documentation maybe from your computer directly into your browser. You can see the attachments much easier, the attachments that are in perhaps QuickBooks or Xero. You can see the pictures much easier, whereas now you almost have to click and it opens up in another browser and you have to toggle back and forth. And it's just basically the objective here is to make sure it's as seamless as possible for you to operate that. So right now there's a beta group. If you want to join the beta group, let me know. I really want this to go live because, gosh, I want nothing more than to promote Dextension as a pun.
Nice.
Yeah, so I wouldn't take too long in the product itself. I know that this is an opportunity for me to go live, but I know that we're almost out of time here. But I will show you a sneak peek into it. Of course, if you want an additional view into Dext, you can do that. But oh, I can't share my screen. Oh.
Let's see, we've got 1 minute, so
Okay, so maybe I won't share.
Okay. And I would say that the majority of people here are saying yes, that they want to be part of that beta group. So there's a lot of yeses that are over in our chat right now. And there were lots of people who said they raised their hand for wanting more information. Plus, we have a lot of Dext users that happen to be in this particular group. So
yeah, we need another poll for the beta group. Hopefully we can snapshot, some of these comments here and we can get more people on the beta group.
well, and we can share that over with you so that we
Awesome.
can have some of this information that's happening over in chat. We want to say thank you to all of our viewers today. We want to say thank you again to our sponsors for making Appy Hour possible. We have got a YouTube channel, and I think, Heather, I heard you say something around 120 videos that are over on YouTube. So with knowing how many apps that are available, that's about 1 in 7 apps if you go over to apps.com. So there is a 1 in 7 chance that we have done some type of video on an app that you are looking for. So I recommend going and checking out YouTube. And then we also have a Facebook Lounge group where we hang out and we talk and we share about apps and just what's happening in our community. And then the other thing that we have coming to us very soon is a decimal firm spotlight. And this is when Matt is going to come on. He's going to talk to us. He's got a firm that's a little larger and he uses quite a few different apps. And so we're going to have Matt come on and share his firm tech with us. And then we're going to do a deep dive into Settle. And then we are going to, Heather and I, talk about some AI bots, which is going to be a very fun conversation. So lots to look forward to that are coming up on the calendar.
Lots of good stuff. Well, this has been fantastic.
Awesome.
Grateful for Dan, you joining us again. You're always welcome. And Nana, thank you so much, and all of your excitement and your enthusiasm shared with everybody here. That just gets us all excited about things that are coming and things that are existing in Dext. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this. I know that we had a chance to do a couple of sessions back at QVC, and Heather, I think you were my very first live auditorium show, and Heather had to give me a big hug as I was like shaking going on the screen. So I will never forget that, and I always relish the opportunity to connect with you guys. So thank you so much.
We are all about community, and you are in it, so I'm grateful.
Well, thanks everybody, and we will see you next time. So have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday and the rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.